Hello, everyone, and many thanks for joining this stream. News summary from Moscow program, first update for the day. And today is, of course, 12th of November. Now it's 11 o'clock in the morning, Moscow time. And in today's first update, I will give you update. I give you information about interview that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov gave to Russian media. I will share some key points from his statements. Also, of course, battlefield update in the zone of special military operation, update on Middle Eastern crisis, Caribbean crisis. Some important developments are happening there, of course. In addition, I will share information about Russian economy, oil market, what is going on in that field. Very important developments are happening. I can just give you a hint that discount on Russian oil at this point is on almost unprecedented level, which is definitely a topic that worth attention. And there are many more news, dear friends, including this corruption scandal on the Kyiv control territory and their potential lowering of their age of their forcefully mobilized people in Ukraine. So I will go through, this news topic by topic. In case you like the news segment, dear friends, please share the video with your friends. Click that like button and leave some commentary. That will be very helpful, of course, to further develop this project to reach wider audience. And in case you want to support my work, and I remind you, dear friends, this is completely subscriber-funded project, and will only exist as long as I have your support. So, if you want to help me maintain this project and continue this work, you can do it through several means. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform, a Boosty platform. You can subscribe on my Patreon and Boosty pages. And when it comes to my Patreon and Boosty, in past several days, we had two new members. One new member on Patreon, Andreo. Thank you very much, Andreo, for joining our Patreon community. And a new member on Boosty, a magical author. Thank you very much to both for your support and attention and for joining our Boosty and their Patreon community. Without this support from members of our community, this project would not exist. We all know that. So yes, all the links are on this video in description box, dear friends, and in the pinned comment. And during the live stream, you can use super chat feature on Rumble or Rant, as it's called there, or become a premium subscriber. Of course, everything helps to stay on this project, to save this project. Okay, that's being said, if you are watching on YouTube, dear friends, and if it's not too inconvenient for you to switch to Rumble, please do so. Please do so. Under this video on YouTube, in description box, you will find links to my Rumble channel. So yes, okay, that's enough, I guess, for intro. Let's start the news segment itself. And well, first of all, let me give you information about this interview that Foreign Minister of Russian Federation, Sergei Lavrov, gave to Russian media. Of course, in past several days, there was all sorts of rumors in media field, the news field, about Lavrov. I already commented on that in one of the recent videos, so there is no need to repeat myself, but let's go through his statements now. So in an interview with the Russian media, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov commented on the nuclear testing situation, revealed details of preparations for the Moscow-Washington summit, and spoke about provocations by UK, Britain. About nuclear tests, Foreign Minister Lavrov stated, and this is quote, "I want to clarify that the president's directive is not to conduct nuclear tests or even prepare for them. foreign ministry and our other agencies, their military and their intelligence services, have been instructed to analyze the situation and reach a consensus on the extent to which this situation warrants consideration of resuming nuclear testing. Lavrov said Moscow is willing to discuss Washington's concerns. At the same time, Russia is alarmed by the statements by some US officials that testing this type of weapon will pursue geopolitical goals, significant departure from their concept of unacceptability of the nuclear war. And another quote from Lavrov: "We still have not received clarification from our American colleagues about what President Trump actually meant. Nuclear tests or carrier tests or so-called subcritical tests, which do not involve a nuclear reaction and are permitted under the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty. There is no answer yet. If any of the nuclear power conducts nuclear weapons tests, non-carriers, not subcritical tests, then Russia will do the same. So if US will go ahead and conduct nuclear weapon tests, then in that case, Russian position is very clear. Moscow will do the same, and the Russian nuclear test site on Novaya Zemlya archipelago is ready basically to act on orders of leadership of the country, if necessary, in a short time. Also, on the topic of Russia-US summit, Sergei Lavrov, foreign minister of the Russian Federation, called for decoupling the summit from their ongoing nuclear testing debate. The Financial Times report on the reasons for the cancellation of Budapest summit is full of lies, including the following sequence of events. Lavrov said there was an article in Financial Times recently about this Budapest summit and why it was called off. And the Russian side is very clear that Financial Times is lying, basically. That's Moscow's position. The memorandum that the Financial Times journalists are referring to is what's called a non-paper. It's not a paper, it's a completely unofficial draft that was sent to our colleagues, not after Putin's conversation with Trump, but several days before that conversation. The purpose of this document was to remind their American counterparts of what the leaders had discussed in Anchorage. While they had not agreed on every single point, they had certainly reached an understanding. Following the conversation with the Secretary of State Marco Rubio, a meeting was planned between representatives of two countries, foreign ministers, military and intelligence agencies. There was no further such a step from the Americans. And it is interesting, by the way, that somehow this confidential paper, non-paper basically, right? This draft basically, end up in the hands of Financial Times, fully or some parts of it. This clearly indicates a level of degeneration of the U.S. Political class, U.S. Political system. They are leaking everything, right? And this is one of the reasons why they cannot be trusted ever, right? It's not just U.S. leadership or the U.S. political class, but same can be said about entire Western world, man. These are freaking clowns. And talking to those clowns is just pure waste of time. Period. There is no but after that. Period. It's a total waste of time and a useless game, useless political game or diplomatic game, wasting any time talking to them whatsoever. Anyways, to continue, the Russian side, according to Lavrov, expected the US to initiate the selection of the venue and the time for the preparatory meeting. For its part, Moscow is ready to discuss preparations for their presidential summit in Budapest. Yet again, it's a waste of time. Why we even talking about this subject of meeting between Russian president and U.S. President. It is so clear that Anchorage, anything that Trump said in Anchorage was forgotten by him and his administration literally day after. And we all understand this, sir, and I refuse to believe that Russian leadership does not understand this. So why we are still engaged in this absolutely nonsensical games with Washington or the collective West in general? I don't know. It's just at this point, by the way, this whole this topic of Russia-U.S. negotiations or meetings or whatever is kind of embarrassing, because it looks like Moscow is sort of begging Washington for attention, and this is at least embarrassing and very bad optics world on a geopolitical scale, because whole world is watching, right? Whole world is watching, and they're seeing perfectly well that all U.S. does is escalates with Russia, and there kills more and more Russian citizens with its direct involvement in this proxy war against the Russian Federation and the Russian people. And when same time Moscow continues to be engaged in this so-called diplomacy, and when Moscow demonstrates time after time after time this extreme politeness that is absolutely unnecessary. I'm not saying that Moscow should use some stronger, street language while talking about Trump or stuff like that. No, I'm not saying that we should curse those freaking clowns, but at least don't be this polite, man, because it's embarrassing, for God's sake, man. World is watching, and they are killing our people, and we being polite. What the hell? I mean, since when this has become normal, man? I don't know. Maybe I'm lost in some, past times. Maybe I'm just, moron. Very well might be. Maybe I'm a freaking idiot, and that's why I don't understand nothing. But I mean, it is what it is, man. I hope Moscow stops this nonsensical games with the Western so-called elites, man. Either with U.S. leadership or with the leadership of European states, because for me personally, optics are just extremely damaging for Russia. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Share your take, dear friends, what you think on that. Anyways, Lavrov also spoke about provocations from UK, right? And he said that Britain will find it extremely difficult to cleanse itself after the exposure of its role in the attempted provocation involving the hijacking of Russian MiG-31 fighter jet from Russia, all through their ability to be in the position of goose emerging from the shower is well known. Lavrov said London long ago lost its empire, economic and military might, but seeks to compensate with such a sabotage. Lavrov also accused Britain of waging an information campaign, anti-Russian information campaign. And London is engaged not just in a sabotage against Russia. London is engaged in acts of war, right? We can use any language. I mean, Russian leadership can use any language they want, but a recent attack on Russian nuclear triad that was orchestrated by British and U.S. Secret Services, that was a pure act of war, man. That was not some mild sabotage. Let's be real here, and yet again, if we are talking about hostility from United Kingdom, why we are not talking about even more hostile steps from the U.S. leadership? I don't know. Easy if London is operating separately, from the U.S. No, they are acting together, well organized and well cooperated, right, to harm Russia and Russian people as much as they can. Anyways, let's continue. We have a quote here from Lavrov. I'd like to draw attention to the latest instances of unprofessional and, I would say, harmful coverage of certain events by the media, including perhaps most especially the British media. What's happening with the BBC right now is well known. The fact that some figures are trying to justify what happened and are talking about some kind of orchestrated campaign is disgraceful, Lavrov said. Okay. And dear friends, some high-ranking officials from BBC were fired. They resigned, basically, over a scandal in regards to January 6th documentary, when they authored, basically, videos, right? And lied to the public. But this is nothing extraordinary, really. I kind of lost in translation when I see so much conversation on internet about BBC. I mean, for God's sake, since when BBC is a respectful media outlet? Since when? I mean, when that time happened, when BBC was respected by anybody, at least in past 2-3 decades, man. Remind me if you can, please, because last 2-3 decades, I am in journalism, right? And I don't remember BBC or any other Western media outlet being respected by anybody and seen as actual media, not a propaganda tool. Maybe in 50s and 60s, they had some respect. 70s, possibly. I was not alive at that point. I was not born yet. But in last 2-3 decades, these all major names in Western so-called media are just total embarrassment for journalism, right? It is what it is. Why so much focus on BBC is if it's something extraordinary that, well, BBC lied. Really? They do lie every freaking day. Just recently, a few days ago, they put on a leave or something. They took some action against their anchor who said a woman was pregnant. Literally. She was reading through teleprompter. Probably you have seen this, friends. And there was a sentence that pregnant people or something. And she corrected and said pregnant woman, right? And for saying pregnant woman, she was she received some criticism, and she might lost her job for that. BBC, that's the BBC for you. What pregnant people? There is a pregnant woman. That's it. There is no pregnant man, right? Maybe BBC or British elites are so freaking maybe they are such degenerates that they think actually that there is a pregnant man and pregnant woman, but this is not in our universe, right? It's a pregnant woman. That's it. Only women can get pregnant. Period. Nothing to discuss there. But yet again, this is Western so-called media, man. Too much time on those garbage outlets. Anyways, let's continue. On the settlement on Ukraine, Lavrov called the denazification a condition for ending conflict and mentioned that the revival of militarism similar to Nazism is observed in today's Germany. And well, this statement, of course, going to cause some misinterpretations because why, people will ask why Lavrov only said denazification, not the demilitarization. Well, maybe because he just meant demilitarization also, right? Russian principal position about special in regards to tasks for special military operation have not changed. I have not seen any statements from Russian president about it. Russian position is very clear: demilitarization, denazification, acknowledgement of new Russian regions as such, Russian regions, removal of illegal sanctions, right? And there are a number of others demands, and there are no changes in that. But anyways, we have a quote here: "This will require us, all those interested in a stable peace, to be principled when the final parameters of settlement are discussed. If the West does not recognize the hopelessness of such a scenario, then it should not demand cessation of hostilities in order to continue pumping weapons into Ukraine, but rather act as President Trump proposed before Alaska when he said a ceasefire would solve nothing. It should end the conflict based on their principles of sustainable settlement. And you see, by the way, time after time, Russian leadership is going back to that Alaska summit. Trump, yes, before summit, and like maybe day before summit or something. Definitely after summit for 24 hours was relatively adequate. And yes, he did say that we should seek sustainable peace. This ceasefire topic is not really that relevant. I'm interpreting his statement, but yet again, it does not matter what Trump said, either before Anchorage summit or after. He already forget about it. And now Washington is on the same page as globalists. Ceasefire, temporary ceasefire, because they want to give some break to their proxy Kyiv regime. It is what it is. Why Russian leadership is struggling to acknowledge this objective, absolutely objective reality is anybody's guess, man. I just don't understand. No matter how many times the Russian side will remind White House or Washington about statements of Trump during the Anchorage summit, or possible agreements that sides might reach, it does not matter no more, because Trump does not care about it. US administration has not care about it. No one cares. That's why I'm saying that being engaged in diplomatic level with the Western elites or Western ruling class on a top level for Russia is a mistake. Let their medium level officials from Russian foreign ministry or from Kremlin administration have some talks with their American or European colleagues. Let them talk, right? And try. But on the top level, on the level of deputy foreign minister or even foreign minister or president of Russia, such contacts are pure waste of time. And I will say embarrassing, man, because everybody, I'm quite sure, by the way, if you conduct some social study here in Russia, vast majority of public will say it's total waste of time to have a conversation with the Western so-called leadership. Because it is true, man. That's how it is. We all see this, right? Anyways, at the same time, according to Lavrov, Europe's attempts to pressure the United States to accept the need for a ceasefire instead of lasting settlement in Ukraine are not without success. Yes, and they are acknowledging that Washington is actually on the same page with the globalists, right? And globalist control regimes in Europe. And Washington is also pushing this ceasefire topic, temporary ceasefire topic, to give some rest to their proxies on the Kyiv-controlled territory. The minister also refuted claims by former U.S. Special Representative for Ukraine, Kurt Volker, that Moscow is unwilling to agree to a peace agreement despite Russia seeking a long-term settlement. And another quote, Volker, continued, Putin does not consider Ukraine a legitimate and sovereign state. There is an answer to this, too. We recognize Ukraine, which was not the Nazi, which alone of all countries did not ban any language, in this case Russian, and which in accordance with its declaration of independence was a non-nuclear, non-aligned neutral state. And this is, I have nothing to add here. Moscow recognizes normal Ukraine as a state, but not this Nazi entity that West created from this former Soviet republic. It's simple. It's simple. And I remind you, dear friends, that this Budapest memorandum, according to which Ukraine was declaring, everyone was agreed that Ukraine had to be neutral. This Budapest memorandum was basically nullified by the West, right? When in 2008, long before they orchestrated coup d'etat in Kiev, when in 2008, Western elites, NATO, officially invited Ukraine alongside with Georgia to join NATO. From that very moment, Budapest memorandum was nullified. Although Western elites love to blame Russia for ignoring that memorandum, but no, Russia did not ignore nothing. How you can ignore something that is no longer exists, isn't it? It was the West that nullified Budapest memorandum, according to which Ukraine should stay neutral always, forever, when this quasi-state was invited to join NATO. And NATO is not a humanitarian organization, it's a military alliance. Also, Lavrov said that former American diplomat also stated President Vladimir Putin's belief in Ukraine's belonging to Russia, and their quote here, I will not even discuss this topic, Lavrov said, and Putin also considers Zelensky a Nazi. Yeah, but where is the evidence to the contrary? There is no evidence. Zelensky is, of course, a puppet of the West and a freaking Nazi. Under fascist, by the way. That's what he is. And they don't tell me that he is Jewish and how he can be fascist. Take a look at Israel, by the way, right? Israel is a fascist entity. How it's possible? It's possible, man. Fascism is not unique to German people or Nazism, isn't it? And at the very same time with Germany, there was another fascist state too. There was Italy, by the way. There was Spain. There was Portugal. There was a fascist regime in Greece too at some point, right? So Israel, modern Israel, is a fascist state also, and commits genocide right before eyes of entire world that does nothing to actually demilitarize this fascist entity and denazify, as it was done in regards to Nazi Germany, for example. Anyways, on topic of Venezuela, Russian foreign minister stated that Caracas has not asked Moscow for military assistance aimed U.S. activity off the coast of the Latin American country. Quote here, I cannot conclude my comment on Venezuela without mentioning our position on the unacceptability of the action taken by United States under the pretext of fighting drug trafficking. The foreign minister noted that Russia is ready to act in full compliance with its obligation under their strategic partnership agreement with Venezuela, which is undergoing the final stages of ratification. And okay, we don't know if there is any point in that agreement on strategic partnership with Venezuela about military assistance, but probably there is something there in this regard. It might be like assistance in security, and assistance in security terms can be interpreted very widely, right? And we already know that according to many reports, probably some units of Wagner PMC have been deployed to Venezuela. We don't know for what exactly purposes, but reports are that transport planes linked to Wagner PMC were spotted in Venezuela several times in past couple of weeks. Anyways, this is statements of Lavrov, dear friends, on some major developments. Share your take, what you think on that. I will continue with some other news. Although first of all, I want to check, dear friends, chat to make sure that there is no technical issues. So I see no complaints in the chat about sound or video. So hopefully everything will work out normal. And okay, let's continue, dear friends. And now information about developments on the battlefield in the zone of special military operation. Russian armed forces liberated Novouspienovskaya settlement in Zaporozhye region. And basically, we can now actually talk with certain level of confidence that large-scale breakthrough was achieved by Russian forces in Zaporozhye region. And I will say Kyiv regime's defense lines are literally collapsing in the eastern flank of Zaporozhye sector. Let me show you on the map, dear friends, what am I talking about. So, earlier I reported about liberation of Novaya settlement, liberation of Uspianovka settlement, Sladkaya settlement, Ribnaya settlement. All these settlements, by the way, were liberated in past several days. And yesterday, Russian Defense Ministry confirmed progress of the Russian armed forces in Novouspienovskaya direction and the liberation of the settlement itself. And also we have reports that Russian troops not just liberated Novouspienovskaya, but moved as a result of fast lighting strike advance, moved towards the outskirts, towards the Yablokova settlement. And some channels already are reporting that clearing operation, Russian troops not just reach Yablokova settlement, but already clearing operation is on the way. Defense Ministry did not say nothing about it yet. It's just some independent channels. And if Russian troops already are in Yablokova settlement, then most likely Russian troops are moving towards Ravnopolye also. This is another settlement that is like significantly bigger than Yablokova. But it's not about size of the settlements, it's about location of the settlements. And look, after Yablokova, Ravnopolye, in northern eastern flank, there is nothing left until Russian troops will reach most northern parts of Gulyai-Polye city, town, which is a major stronghold of Kyiv regime in the eastern part of Zaporozhye sector. And it might be that, Russian troops will not just concentrate now offensive operations in Vysokaya, Zelený Gai, Veselaya directions to neutralize potential risks of flanking and Zatishye, to minimize risks of potential flanking attacks from Kyiv regime's forces towards advancing Russian troops towards Gulyai-Polye from Yablokova, Ravnopolye, for example, right? But Russian troops might actually move further westwards towards Prilupki, Varvarovka settlements and cut this main supply and support line of the Kyiv regimes in Gulyai-Polye in this area also. And this main supply and support line, dear friends, already is under Russian fire control, and reports are coming in about progress of the Russian armed forces in Danilovka area, and the Russian troops already are on most eastern outskirts of the settlement. And some channels are reporting that Russian troops established control over the Radosnaya settlement, this one here. And if true, then this main supply and support line of Kyiv regime in Gulyai-Polye is already cut. Main supply and support line from Dnipropetrovsk regions. So clearly, seems like defense lines of Zelensky's regime is completely collapsing in this sector of the front line, and very soon, maybe even in 2 weeks' time, potentially, we will see beginning of the battle for Gulyai-Polye itself. Very much possible. Also, let's continue with some other news, dear friends. And we have a report that Russian armed forces establish full control over the eastern part of Kupiansk, which is Kharkov region. Let me show you this area, dear friends. So this is Kupiansk, and as you can see, dear friends, this gray zone is getting bigger and bigger, and whole this territory, whole of eastern part, is under Russian control now, according to Russian media reports. There is, of course, there are going to be some small pockets of resistance inside the eastern part of Kupiansk, as it is the case in the western part of Kupiansk, which is divided basically by Oskol River. But progress of the Russian armed forces in liberating Kupiansk city is great. Is great, right? And there are more and more reports about surrendering military personnel of Kiev regime in this area. Also, although Zelensky and his Western masters, they cannot bear this defeat on the battlefields, and they are sending more and more troops on suicidal offensives towards these encircled groups of Kiev regime in Kupiansk, also across Mirnograd direction. And I can show you video of consequences of one such attack. When Kiev regime was preparing significant number of military personnel to attack Kupiansk, Russian positions in Kupiansk from southern side to achieve some breakthrough or something. Well, these preparations were spotted. Russian militaries were monitoring the situation and conducted counterattack. And the entire grouping of forces of Kiev regime was neutralized. And I can show you video of that. There is plenty of videos, by the way, but there are certain ones that cannot be shown on YouTube and Rumble. But I think this video will do okay. There was significant grouping of forces, quite a number of armored personnel carriers, other military equipment, and well, Russian troops spotted and conducted counterattack with drones, artillery, everything. And look, consequences, by the way. Everything is burning. They were using this tree line, seems like, for concentration. And just look, everything is destroyed, right? Another one there. So that's what is happening. That's what Kiev regime does to its military personnel. They are sending troops literally to commit suicide. But it is what it is, man. Russian troops are monitoring situation, and for a reason, offering Kiev regimes encircle their military personnel to lay down arms and surrender, because they have almost no chance to escape. Yes, some militaries of Kiev regime might try, small groups, 1, 2, 3 person groups, can try and even successfully escape from encirclement, nighttime, for example. But they have to be very lucky to do so. Bigger groups on the level of platoon or company, they have no chance, by the way, to escape, because they're going to be spotted and destroyed in the very same way that this group was destroyed that you just see on the video while preparing attack on eastern on a southern side of Pokrovsk to achieve some breakthrough there and allow their troops to escape, right? That's what is happening there. Let me continue with some other news, and well, this is also interesting. I think Russia has created new forces in the military. Unmanned system troops have appeared in Russia, and regular regiments have been formed. The deputy head of this branch of the armed forces reported about it, and one understandable move. We have air force, aerospace forces, we have strategical forces, we have navy, obviously, ground forces, and drone forces have to exist too. Unmanned systems forces. And drones, I mean, not just aerial drones, but ground drones, maritime drones, you name it, right? And the drones are changing the face of modern warfare tremendously, isn't it? We all know that. And before I continue with some other news difference, let me also give you update on Pokrovsk-Mirnograd direction. Well, Russian troops further tightening the news around Mirnograd. Pokrovsk is already under Russian control. There might be some small pockets of resistance here and there, but city is under Russian control. And the Russian troops were advancing in Mirnograd. In most southern part of Mirnograd, one of the units, by the way, a commander of one of the units made a right decision, to save lives of military personnel, and contacted Russian side, organized safe surrender. And probably you have seen videos of a couple of dozen of troops of Kyiv regime surrendering in Mirnograd. This is the area, by the way, where this occurred. And as I said, the Russian side will take a time to let everybody from Kyiv regime's forces that are encircled in Mirnograd to use their opportunity to save their lives. Well, if they will listen good, they will save their lives. If they don't, then in that case, well, of course, eventually Russian troops will have to. Oh, I forgot to open the map. Okay, that's the map, by the way. That's the map. This is the area of Mirnograd, where this platoon of Kyiv regime's forces surrendered. And well, if negotiations are failing, if Kyiv regime's forces are refusing to surrender, well, in that case, of course, Russian militaries have no much option but to take some action. And that's what is happening when action is taken. Let me show you this video. For example, this is Mirnograd and a strike, Russian Air Force strike on a point of concentration of Kyiv regime's troops there that most likely refused to surrender. And well, that's what's happening. If offer to surrender was given, and if hostile side refused to accept it, that's what is happening. So there will be no more chances for those troops that were obliterated in that strike to save their lives, no more, isn't it? But yet again, only so many times Russian side can offer to encircle the enemy troops to surrender. At some point, of course, decision will be made to conduct strike, like you see on your screen right now. And yeah, consequences are extreme for Kyiv regime's troops when it happens. And dear friends, before I continue, once again, let me notice, if I may, that well, this project only exists as long as I have your support. And if you like my work, if you want to help with the further development of this project, you can do it through several means. All the links of PayPal. And don't be confused. We have several hundred new members, by the way, in last week also. And for them, I will say not to get confused when they will click on a PayPal link, for example. If they will click, PayPal account that I use is my wife's PayPal account. I personally don't have PayPal, so I use my wife's PayPal account. So don't be confused on that. So yes, under this video in description box, there is a PayPal link, Boosty, Patreon page, everything, crypto, and also Rumble links to my Rumble channel in case you want to support through Super Chat on Rumble, for example, or become a premium subscriber there. Okay, that's been said. Let's continue with some other news. And well, you all know, dear friends, that there is quite a big corruption scandal that is going on in Ukraine right now. And 4 ministers there from Zelensky's government were implicated in an energy corruption scandal, for example, according to Ukraine's NABU anti-corruption agency. Raids are targeting Justice Minister Galushenko and also former energy minister. Their scandal also reportedly involves their current energy minister too, Grinchuk. And on this topic, dear friends, this morning, number of sources reported that German Galushenko, justice minister of Kiev regime that was accused of corruption, was fired. He was removed from his position, and probably some other ministers will be removed also. And question is, what is going on right there? Is Zelensky now tries to please America, and this NABU anti-corruption bureau is controlled by US mainly, by the way. Of course, UK is involved there, Europe is involved there, but European elites, but mainly NABU is under control of US. And I remind you that FBI is conducting investigation about quite a number of people from Zelensky's inner circle. Clearly, Washington is increasing pressure on Zelensky, and some individuals interpreted, some commentators on the internet, for example, interpreted this activization of investigations around Zelensky's inner circle as an attempt of Washington to pressure Zelensky to agree on Russian terms or to agree to withdraw forces from Donbass as the Russian side demanded. It's not just Donbass, but also Kherson and the Zaporozhye regions. But nevertheless, some commentators are saying that this is, how Washington is pressing Zelensky to be more flexible in terms of negotiations. But I have to disagree with that take. I think this assault, basically, on Zelensky and his government, his inner circle, is linked to demand of Washington, long-standing demand from Washington, from London, from Western elites, basically, to begin conscripting younger people from 18 to 25, because they want to prolong, Western elites want to prolong this proxy war as much as they can, and they understand Kiev regime is experiencing tremendous issue with the manpower. Some people in the West might think that Turkey regime is experiencing some issues with their weapons, munition, with their finances. Not really. West will find money, West will find weapons, and the weapons flow and money flow is not stopping. Never stopped, actually. But when it comes to manpower, this is a big issue, right? Western elites did try to help Kiev regime with their manpower also, and not just by day troops, not just with deployment of their special forces or intelligence assets, but by organizing a large-scale flow of recruiters from different countries as mercenaries, right? And Western PMCs are actively involved in these Western diplomatic missions even, right? In this constant flow of mercenaries from Latin American countries or from a number of African countries and so on. We all know that. But nevertheless, issue of lack of manpower is only getting bigger and bigger. And these breakthroughs that we have seen on the line of contact, breakthroughs that Russian militaries are achieving, further demonstrates dire situation for the globalists and their allies on the battlefield. And one of the ways they will try, I said this many times, one of the ways they will try to deal with this issue, at least temporarily, is to force Zelensky to begin recruiting younger generation people from 22 to 25. And till nowadays, Zelensky was refusing to forcefully mobilize people younger than 25, right? But seems like after this assault on Zelensky that was orchestrated by Washington, after this assault on Zelensky and his inner circle, I think Kiev will begin soon adopting legislation to begin mobilizing younger generation people too. And on this very topic, dear friends, mayor of Kiev, which is formally in opposition to Zelensky, you know what they are doing? They are coming up with this trickery. Zelensky and his criminal associates, of course. Mayor of Kiev, Klitschko, is associate of Zelensky. They are coming up with this trickery to fool the people on Kiev-controlled territory, which is that, well, Mayor of Kiev is initiating now to begin mobilizing younger people. Not from 18, but from 22, 23 years, right? That's the trick that they come up with. And now, well, if opposition is coming up with such an initiative, then, well, Zelensky will say, okay, I mean, we will, that's opposition's demand. And, let's do this. We will agree on that, right? And this way they want to keep people quiet on the Kiev-controlled territory, right? And create this false narrative that this is everybody's opinion, that we have to now, position, opposition, and everybody. That we have now begun mobilizing younger people. Yet again, trick, just political trick there, right? To begin sacrificing for geopolitical agenda of the Western younger generation of Kiev regime too. And let me share some details on this report that is coming from Politico, by the way, right? A headline is that Ukraine faces huge problem fighting soldiers as men flee abroad, says Kiev mayor. So Kiev mayor Vitaly Klitschko proposed lowering the mobilization age from 25 to 22, according to Politico. And we have quote from his statements of Kiev mayor. In the past, 18-year-old young people served in the army, but they are children. Now, in Ukraine, one can only be mobilized from age 25. It can be lowered by a year or two to 23, 22, he said, right? And, well, this is a hint. This is a hint, definitely, about what is to happen on Kiev-controlled territory. And those young people, by the way, from 18 to 25, better run and hide, because they're not going to stop on 22. They're going to start mobilizing even young teenagers, by the way. They're going to start mobilizing 18-year-old kids. That's what they're going to do. They will sacrifice everybody. I said a million times before, globalists and neocons and their allies, they will sacrifice literally everybody on the Kiev-controlled territory. Children, women, elderly, everybody, because they don't care. They simply don't care about lives of these people. They never did, right? So that's what is going on, dear friends. This latest attack on Zelensky and his inner circle, orchestrated by Washington, in my personal opinion, is not an attempt to pressure Zelensky to agree on, let's say, Russian terms, to de-escalate or something like that. No, this attack is to pressure Zelensky to begin mobilizing young people from 18 to 25. On first stage, they might start mobilizing from 22 years, as Kiev mayor was told to say. And later on, they might start mobilizing from 18 also. And probably they will. This will, of course, if they will mobilize all 18 to 25-year-old people on Kiev-controlled territory, this will not turn the tide, obviously, on the battlefield. But unfortunately, this will turn this tragedy into even bigger tragedy for the Russian world, right? Because it's a civil war, basically, that was provoked by Kiev regime, right? And it's Russians that are fighting each other. It's a people from Russian world that is fighting each other, right? Vast majority of people in this Russian world are on the right side of history and fighting for Russia and the Russian world, and smaller group that was brainwashed by Western elites. That smaller group, that brainwashed part of Russian world, is fighting for a geopolitical agenda of the West. And well, Kiev regime definitely will go ahead there to turn this already massive tragedy for Russian world to even bigger disaster when these young people from 18 to 25 are gonna get sacrificed too for Western elites, man. Just imagine, for Western elites, man. So many people died. Unbelievable. So many people were sacrificed. I'm saying, man, Western elites are evil force. They are evil force and threat for whole of humanity. And we all have to get together and fight this evil force. There is no West and East and North and South. There is a humanity and Western elites, evil force. And humanity have to win this battle. That's how the situation is. To continue, dear friends, we have reports that U.S. Considering new base near the Gaza for for 10,000 personnel, according to Bloomberg. Navy seeking cost estimates for a 12 months self-sustained facility to monitor ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. And well, you see mentioning of Navy, isn't it, sir? Most likely it will be on the coastal line of Palestine, where this base is going to be built, and there are 10,000 troops, brother, might be sent by US. So it's going to be full-fledged US occupation of Gaza. And if Washington will go ahead with this, clearly, shortly after they will begin participating in the genocide of these U.S. troops will begin participating in the genocide of Palestinian people alongside with their Israeli troops. I never believed in a single word that Trump said about no longer seeking depopulation of Gaza Strip from Palestinians. You remember what he was talking about, Gaza Strip? That it's a great territory that can be developed this way and that way, and he was completely ignoring existence of people there, locals, right, Palestinians. And probably he was told by someone from inner circle that you cannot talk this way, man. You were calling for ethnic cleansing openly. This is bad. And Trump changed his rhetoric a bit, right? But I don't think Trump or his inner circle changed their plans. So if anybody was really believing that they're gonna be some true ceasefire or peace in Palestine, then sorry to wake you up, but no, man. Israel will continue genociding Palestinian people, and they're most likely with the direct participation of US troops, thousands of them. This report about potential deployment of 10,000 US military personnel into Palestine is coming from Bloomberg, Western propaganda outlet. When it comes to Middle East, dear friends, also we have this report that Hezbollah's leader Sheikh Naim Qassem refused to lay down arms, calling U.S.-Israeli demands more pretext for aggression against Lebanon, insisting that the group's weapons are the key to its strength. Basically, Hezbollah is only defense line that Lebanon has. Lebanese army is a freaking joke, man, and they're largely controlled by Israel and others. But definitely, they are not in service of Lebanese people. Let's make no mistake on that. I'm not talking about troops, ordinary soldiers. I'm talking about leadership of Lebanese army. Only defense Lebanese people actually have, true defense, is Hezbollah. And even though Hezbollah suffered significant losses due to Israeli strikes, I think they still are very much capable force. And as Israel continues to intensify bombing of Lebanon, I think if nothing changes, it's only a matter of time, and we will see all-out war between Hezbollah and Israel. And if Israel was unable to defeat Hamas, then I don't think Israel can defeat Hezbollah. They can strike hard on Hezbollah for sure, but I don't think they can defeat Hezbollah, because Hezbollah is a people. Hezbollah is a resistance movement of the Lebanese people. And I don't think Israel is going to be able to defeat the people of Lebanon now or ever, unless Israel will genocide Lebanese too, as they do with their Palestinians. Meanwhile, a new leader of Syria, Ashara, stated in an interview with the WAPO, Washington Post, that he sees necessary for Syria to have Russia's support. I can give you some quotes. We need Russia because it is a permanent member of the Security Council. We need their voice to be on our side on certain issues, and we have strategic interest with them. He said in an interview with the Washington Post, according to a Syrian leader, Damascus recognizes the importance of maintaining constructive relations with Moscow so as not to push Russia towards alternative options in the Syrian settlement. So at least Ashara understands that Moscow does have alternative options and the capabilities to implement these alternative options. But yet again, if you ask me, and I'm quite sure if you ask people here in Russia, vast majority of public will say that we should withdraw from Syria. We should withdraw our bases from Syria and just forget about the existence of this quasi-state at this stage. Yes, we had always good friendly relationships with Syria, with Syrian people, but that was the times when Syria was led by secular governments. You can call them dictatorships or whatever, but it was a secular governments that were not committing genocide of people based on ethnicity or religion or whatever, right? Now there is a proxy regime in Syria, right? Turkish proxy, Israeli proxy, US proxy, British proxy, everybody's proxy, right? And you know what? Let the Syrian people deal with this situation. And if sometime in the future they will have a normal secular government again, then okay, it will make sense to try and rebuild their good relationships. But now, what good relationships can we have with Syria, man? You tell me. How? Oh, I don't know. I just want our bases to be out of Syria, and I don't want to hear about Syria, nothing, man. I simply don't care, man. Syrian people did not fight. Syrian people did not fight to defend themselves. And we should not fight for them. If they are not willing to fight, we should not either. That's how I think about it. And we all see what happened to Syrian so-called army, isn't it? When these terrorists were attacking. When these Israeli, US, Turkish-led and British-led terrorists were attacking. Syrian army, they just disappeared in days, in matter of days. So, and they're, you know, I feel sorry for people of Syria, of course. They are under terrorist regime now. But they should fight, man. They should fight when they have the chance. They should get better organized and fight. Now it's just too freaking late. And I don't really care what this Damascus regime has to say about Russia. Or at least they understand that if they will mess around too much, some actions can be taken, and it's only a matter of political decision, and this terrorist regime will be obliterated literally in matter of hours, right? But I don't even want that to happen. Let them sort it out, man. Let Israel, that was sponsoring these terrorists, let the US, Turkey, UK, let them sort, and the Saudi Arabia and Qatar that also were financing those terrorists, let them sort this shit out with Syria, right? We should withdraw our bases, withdraw our people, say goodbye, and see you sometime in the future. And that's all, man. And let's forget about it. That's my take personally. We don't freaking need no bases in Syria. We don't need nothing in Syria, with Syria, around Syria, just nothing. Forget about it, man. TASS news agency is reporting that, well, there was an aircraft crash, by the way, in Georgia. Transport aircraft crashed off Turkish Air Force, and as a result, according to reports, at least 20 servicemen of Turkish armed forces were killed. Reports are that this military personnel was participating in a recent military parade in Azerbaijan. Plane took off from Azerbaijan and flying towards the Turkey, and plane just crossed border with Georgia, and plane disintegrated in the air. Right, this was a C-130, by the way, transport Hercules transport plane, and I can show you video of this incident. I can show you the video, by the way. It's clearly demonstrates that plane kind of disintegrated in air. It lost its tail section completely. I mean, there is no tail section on the plane. You can see there, and it crashed. So one might even say, maybe some air defense missile struck it by mistake or something, because how tail section fell off like that? I mean, God knows, man. I don't know. Plane just crossed border with Georgia, and maybe plane was disintegrating already before it crossed border with Georgia. It's right on the border, basically, right? But eventually, plane failed on the Georgian territory in southern Caucasus. So, well, scary video there, man. Can you imagine you are the military on that plane? What you gonna do? And you only have like seconds left, right? None of them probably had any parachutes on them or something. A horrible video. Scary stuff. So yes, that's what happened, by the way. Also, when it comes to another crisis, we just spoke about some Middle Eastern stuff, and there is another region which is gonna get hot very soon, and that is Caribbean, of course. And the world's largest aircraft carrier, Gerald Ford, arrived in Venezuela, according to RT's report. And it will be part of U.S. Navy strike group positioned in Southern Command by Trump. And we are getting closer and closer to war. And we have this report that 200,000 Venezuelan troops being mobilized for drills using Russian air defense and U.S. forces, while U.S. forces are massing in the Caribbean. Venezuela is defended by Bolivarian force, Defense Minister Vladimir Padriano Lopez stated. Before this, there was a number of other steps that Venezuelan government had taken, including launching mobilization of civilians, right? And it depends how successful that mobilization was or will be, but millions of people actually can be armed if US will dare to go ahead with the landing operation in Venezuela, against Venezuela. But you know what, dear friends, as time goes by, I'm kind of more and more convinced that all this buildup of US militaries in the Caribbean may not necessarily be about Venezuela, but about Cuba. Maybe I'm wrong, But US, because according to reports, all this Caribbean crisis is orchestrated by Marco Rubio, head of US State Department, and simultaneously national security advisor of Trump, probably most powerful person right now from officials in the US formerly after Trump. So yes, Rubio is behind this escalation, isn't it? And he has roots in Cuba, correct? He has roots in Cuba, and already a number of U.S. Officials, lawmakers, and so on, or stated that after Venezuela, Cuba might be next, and that's what is going on most likely. The U.S. is building up its forces, maybe not just to attack Venezuela, but also to take action against Cuba, by the way. I think that's what is happening, because it's too much force, man. Too much force for any one country there. Especially if you keep in mind that Puerto Rico is just like 4 hours flight from Venezuela, right? Maybe less, 2-3 hours flight for planes. So Puerto Rico could be used as a as a main base for Air Force. Why they are bringing aircraft carrier too? It's just excessive force. Just for Venezuela, this seems excessive because only with airstrikes, maximum what US will achieve is to kill political and military leadership, some of them in Venezuela, right? But they're not going to conquer the country with airstrikes. Eventually, they will have to go ahead with the landing operation. And I did not see deployment of ground forces in a large scale, right? Yes, there are some amphibious warships in this strike group. Several thousand military personnel there, but you know what? I don't think several thousand troops of US are enough to conquer Venezuela. I don't think several dozen of thousands of US troops will be enough to conquer Venezuela. And let's be real, man, I don't think US troops are even capable of actually conquering Venezuela and enslaving the people there. I don't think so. They are a bunch of poorly trained, poorly equipped people. That's it, man. That's what they are. US militaries, man, US ground forces. And some might argue that US Navy is not any better prepared, or the US Air Force, just because they were successful against third grader or fourth grader militaries in Iraq or elsewhere. It does not mean that the level of professionalism of US militaries are actually like at least on 6 point, 7 point from 10. No, man. Maybe they are somewhere around 3, 4. They are just being advertised too much by Hollywood and by propaganda, but they have not won no war, man, since the Second World War, and they would lose that war too if not Soviet Union. Let's be real here. So let's see, man. Let's see. US aircraft carrier is there, and I guess it's only a matter of time when Venezuela will be attacked, and potentially even Colombia. Who knows, man? Relationships between Bogota and Washington is also escalating, right? And Gustavo Petro, president of Colombia, for example, stated that there will be no more intelligence sharings with the US because US is killing fishermen in the Caribbean, executing them basically. And it's not just Colombia, but surprisingly, UK stopped sharing drug boat intelligence with the US too. So UK has stopped sharing intelligence, allegedly, on suspected drug boats in the Caribbean with the US after the Pentagon began conducting lethal strikes on their vessels. CNN and the Times reported on Tuesday, citing people familiar with the matter. And it's not, and UK is stopping sharing information, not because they care, British leadership cares about civilians or fishermen from either Colombia or any other country in the region, Venezuela or something. No, it's a bad optics, right? Starmer's government is already one of the least popular governments ever in UK's history, right? And they just don't want to be associated with this mass execution of the people without due process. And that's what US does, man. They are executing people without any due process. And just because Washington or Pentagon said that these are drug dealers or drug traffickers or whatever, just because they say so, we're not going to believe in that, isn't it? So who are they killing, man? They already killed about 60 people, right, in these attacks, maybe more at this point. And every single attack was authorized personally by Trump. So Trump is a literally mass murderer, man. He literally ordered execution of around 60 people for now, maybe more. And process continues. God knows how many people will die when US will go ahead with their military action against Venezuela, potentially even Colombia and their Cuba Valley. So it's a bad optics for UK's government, and that's why they are publicly, they are leaking the information that they stopped sharing intelligence with US. In reality, maybe they didn't, but they wanted this information to become public to gain maybe point or two in support, right? In UK, but I don't think they're gonna achieve much with this. As I said, current Labour government is absolutely hated by people in UK, and if you think Conservatives are doing any better, no. People hate them. Majority of people in UK literally despise Labour Party and the Conservative Party, and that's why support for Nigel Farage's Reform UK stands on 35-40% at this point, while support for Labours and Conservatives are less than 20, right? And dropping. So let's see what is going to happen, dear friends. But Caribbean definitely is getting closer and closer to become a next, a large-scale hotspot on the world's map. And this might last for decades, by the way. If US will go ahead with their attacks on Latin American countries, they might destabilize whole region that will last for decades, as it is case in Middle East, by the way. When Middle East had a peace last time, long-standing peace, man. Can you remember? I don't. Not in my lifetime, for sure. And not since Israel was created. Let's be real here, man. Also, India's Prime Minister Modi vows retaliation after a blaster at Delhi's Red Fort that killed 12 people. Our agencies will get to the bottom of this conspiracy. The masterminds behind this will not be spared, Modi stated. Terrorism is their primary line of investigation, according to RT India sources. And the day before yesterday, dear friends, there was a car explosion in New Delhi that killed already, number was different. There was reports about 8 people being killed there, dozens and dozens wounded. Unfortunately, number of killed increased to 12 now. And from the beginning, there was no clarity. Was it some sort of a tragic accident or it was a terrorist attack? But now we have these reports that investigators in India are primarily considering this to be a terrorist attack. And in that case, who knows? Maybe once investigation is finished, and if investigators will say yes, it was terrorist attack, and terrorist group that orchestrated attack is based in Pakistan, we might see continuation or second phase of Operation Sindoor that India launched in retaliation against Pakistan, in retaliation for a previous terrorist attack that also took life of dozens of people. TASS News Agency is reporting that Russia has banned entry for 30 Japanese citizens. So Russia, in connection with the Tokyo's ongoing anti-Russian sanctions linked to a special military operation, is banning entry to 30 Japanese citizens, including Japanese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Toshihiro Kitamura. This was announced in a statement by Russian diplomatic mission. Okay. Japan only like 2 weeks ago get new prime minister, and Tokyo is already escalating, right? Initially, in her first days, new prime minister of Japan, first woman prime minister, stated that, well, she will seek to de-escalate with Russia and to achieve a peace agreement with Russia. Formally, we are still at war, by the way, with Japan. After Second World War, peace was not signed between Moscow and Tokyo, right? So formally, we're still at war. And this new prime minister, as many others before her, also said that, well, she will work to achieve this peace with Russia, peace deal to be signed, and so on, peace agreement. And only took like a couple of weeks. And after they received instructions from Washington, they began talking shit again, right? It's a classical stuff, but that's what always happens with Japanese leadership. Before being appointed or elected or whatever, some politicians, at least some politicians, are saying quite adequate stuff. They are in office day after. Their attitude is changing because they are receiving orders, right, from Washington, what to say, how, when, and so on, right? So instructions have been sent to Japanese new leadership, and they are going to another circle now. And Moscow is, retaliating, kind of, right? Some 30 Japanese will not be able to visit Russia. Okay. At least there is no actual war, by the way, in the place, right? And the reason why we have no peace treaty is that, well, as a compensation for all the harm that fascist Japan did to Russian people, Soviet people, Stalin took Kuril Islands, 4 Kuril Islands from Japan, right? And as a little compensation, he was very generous, actually, because I never understood why he did not take freaking Hokkaido Island. Why just these 4 islands? Konoshiro, Shikatao, I can't even remember the names, but anyways, 4 tiny islands, by the way, and Japan is claiming those islands to be Japanese. After they've been trained by American occupiers, Japan began escalating with Moscow on topic of these 4 islands, right? They don't want to recognize them to be Russian, and this is basically formal reason why we have no peace treaty. And let's be real, do I give a damn about, or anybody here, by the way, in Russia, do we really care about Japan or if we have a peace treaty with them or not? No, man. No, we just don't give a damn about it. And I can only feel sorry that Stalin was this, this kind to Japan, man. What the hell? Look, man, Let me show you these freaking islands. Why Stalin didn't talk hold this island, by the way, right? This is Hokkaido, right? Island. And that's where is Kuril. That's the Kuril Islands, by the way. And this one's here, right? Shikotan, Habumai, and then two more. So we should took hold this freaking island, man. Hokkaido. But we didn't. God knows why, man. Maybe Stalin had some, I don't know, man, secret sympathizer to something Japanese, man. I don't know. These Japanese samurai stories or something. I don't know, man. It makes no sense, man. US freaking bombed Japan with the freaking nukes, man, killing hundreds of thousands of people like that in a second. US also burned down Tokyo, right? Many people don't know that. Before nuking their Hiroshima and their Nagasaki, US burned down Tokyo, and they're in the fire, by the way, 200,000, around 200,000 civilians were killed. They were using incendiary munition, especially because all this vast majority of constructions in Japan at the time was from wood, right? And Americans were just burning everybody. Civilians, non-civilians, they never cared. And while US was committing these atrocities, literal atrocities against humanity, by the way, crimes against humanity, Soviet Union went just extremely soft on Japan and took 4 tiny islands in compensation, which is I don't know, massive mistake on part of Stalin, man. Taking entire freaking Hokkaido, man, and that's it. But he didn't. Anyways, let me continue with some other news, dear friends. Few more, and the new segment is over on that. So Bulgaria has 1 month of gasoline supplies as US sanctions loom. State Reserve Agency says, and this is all due to US anti-Russian sanctions, right? Just recently, US sanctioned Russian Lukoil and Rosneft, Russian energy majors, and as a result, Lukoil cannot any longer operate its foreign assets, and until these foreign assets of Lukoil being brought by some other companies, what this company will do? What Lukoil gonna do about it? They will shut down their assets, right? Because they cannot operate. They are under sanctions. And Bulgaria is one of the countries that will be hurt by this. And you know what? Too bad, man. Why should I care, man? Bulgaria is extremely anti-Russian, Bulgarian elites. So let them buy American oil. Let them pay a little more, like, who cares, man? Who cares? Bulgarian elites are freaking traitors, sir. Bulgaria only exists, man, because of Russia. And seems like many people in Bulgaria forget that from Turkish occupation, they were liberated by Russians. They don't remember that no more, isn't it? They love American boots now. They love to freaking lick American boots, and let them do so. And then let them lick American oil too. That might help. Kommersant newspaper is reporting that their discount on the Russian oil, by the way, has reaching unprecedented levels, kind of. So Russian oil has seen sharpest increase in discounts in the past year, with Urals discounts at the Baltic and the Black Sea ports reaching nearly $20 per barrel. Analysts attribute the widening discounts to US sanctions against Lukoil and Rosneft and the forced revision of supply chains. The last time discount in the Baltic exceeded $15 per barrel was earlier this year, and well, it's a big deal, of course. I'm not gonna say that this is nothing extraordinary, not gonna hurt Russian businesses or energy companies or Russian income. No, it's a big deal. Obviously, it's a big deal, and well, Russian deficit deficit in Russian federal budget are gonna get even bigger because even though oil and gas revenues or revenues from oil and gas sectors is only like 20% around 2025 maybe in the federal budget, it's still 20-25%, by the way. It's still a big deal, some absence of this income not gonna collapse Russian economy, but it will hurt, and it does hurts, obviously. And yes, what we're gonna do about it? That's the question right now, isn't it? Maybe at some point, exporting oil really becomes you know unjustified because oil prices are failing right now. Reports are that Saudis, most likely under the pressure from Washington, are increasing their discount on oil to, and that pressures Russia. Obviously, that hurts Russia. Lately, I did see some articles where there was some opinions that relationships between Moscow and Riyadh are escalating, sort of, all because of the U.S. influence on Saudi Arabia. And yeah, I mean, too bad. Too bad. We are losing on oil, and maybe soon Russian companies will be forced to begin shutting down their or decreasing, let's say, oil production, because if rentability, how say rentability, man, rentability. Yes, profitability. If there is no profitability in oil exports, then maybe we should consider just shutting down all these oil wells and focusing more on domestic market, right? I don't know. I'm not an expert in energy, but $20 discount, by the way, really? So we are selling oil now for how much? Like $30 for a barrel, $35 for a barrel, according to reports. Last week, average price of Urals fell by 4% compared to previous week to $50.3 per barrel. So if price on oil is $50, and if we are giving discount $20, then we are only getting like $30 for a barrel. Is it even profitable? Because to produce this oil, to transport this oil, you are spending some money, right? Is it even profitable at this point to export oil? I don't know, man. But yes, this is a big deal, by the way. And if anybody says that these sanctions are completely unharmful and they're doing nothing, no, they are harmful, by the way. And this is US doing to Russia, right? This is US is hurting Russian economy and subsequently Russian people. US is an enemy of Russian people. Period. Nothing to discuss there. And sooner Russian leadership will realize that, if they did not yet, the better. And hopefully they will realize this and stop being this polite to Russian enemies from Washington. So yes, by the way, maybe you were wondering what is going on around the Russian oil sector after this recent sanctions on Rosneft and Lukoil, and that's what is going on. We are selling oil now on a $20 discount. Soon, maybe this discount will increase even further, and at some point, probably Russian companies will have no option but to literally shut down production of significant volumes of oil production to stay profitable. Because, I mean, if I remember correctly, to make some money, we have to sell oil over $40 a barrel. Anything below $40, $45 is not profitable for Russia. If I remember correctly, by the way, that's the numbers, right? So we are already selling oil, seems like, below $40 mark, because if last week, as Kommersant newspaper says here, if last week Russian Urals was trading for $50.3, and if we are selling oil with $20 discount, then we only get like $30 a barrel, right? Which is too bad, man. Anyways, let's see what is going to happen, by the way. Let's see. Some economical experts are saying that 2026 is going to be very difficult economically for Russia. All these sanctions, all these tens of thousands of sanctions will finally struck Russian economy in 2026. I don't know if this is true or not. Maybe this is just yet another delusion on part of these economical experts that were predicting collapse of Russian economy already like several times in every single year since 2022. But well, we will find out. We will find out. Let's see, by the way. So that's about it. By the way. Hopefully you did find new segment interesting and informative. Let me check Boosty if there was any questions through Boosty to highlight. No, by the way, there was nothing on a Boosty. Let me check Rumble right now if there was any super chat. Oh, no super chat on Rumble. There is very few comments. Okay. I guess there was no question from other support platforms too. Otherwise, probably Anya would saw it. Anna, my wife, and would send me screenshots. So therefore, I'm gonna end this live stream on that, dear friends. Have a wonderful day. I try today. Maybe, let's see, maybe later on today. It depends on how day goes news-wise. Maybe later on I will publish second news update on my Patreon and Boosty pages. Depends on, maybe walk and talk type of video, maybe from this improvised studio. Let's see, dear friends. And before I go, just last reminder that if you want to support my work, you can do it through several means. All the links are on this video in the description box, and there will be in a pinned comment shortly after I will end live stream. Have a wonderful day, dear friends, and take care. Bye.